All right, everybody, we are back this week for UFC Fight Night Mexico City. Erceg versus Moreno, the main event in the flyweight division between the former champion and Brandon, the assassin baby Moreno, taking on the former title challenger in Steve Astro Boy Erceg. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, everybody, we're back. We're back and we're ready to go. Decent predictions last week, but they weren't that great. I will say we did call the round 4 submission for Sean Brady in the main event. Said it would be a rear naked choke. It was a guillotine, but, can't do everything perfectly correct. Co-main event, I believe we got correct as well. I'm losing my track. Yeah, it was Carlos Olberg. We said by KO, but it was possible it was a decision. Had Pooja Tomar. Looked real good when she dropped her with the head kick and then followed up, and Bannon locked up that submission. I ended up actually hitting the 11-1, the plus 1100 on the fight ends by sub, and I paired it with Tainara and McCann ends by sub. And and we called Tainara by sub, Brady by sub. We had some good picks. Chairez and Vucenic really let me down. I wasn't exactly thrilled with those performances. Vucenic just never really got out of the starting blocks. He got dropped with that little body kick to a same side right hand. And then in the second round, he just shot a takedown on the guy who controlled him for the whole first round pretty much. Probably due to the pressure, the forward pressure, the power of Duncan on the feet. There was something he didn't like. He shot in and he gave his neck, and, that was it. But with Chairez and Wood, that was a good fight, man. Wood is good. I've always said that I like that guy. I think he's very technical, very proficient. And I don't know what was up with Morgan Chairez in that fight, because he wasn't ever able to really step on the gas. He wasn't ever really able to let his power go, which I really thought was going to be the biggest difference, was the power. But I think it's because he got dropped with that overhand right and got sat down and pretty much got KO'd. I think he got knocked out and woke up when he hit the ground. And then I think he just was kind of on autopilot for the rest of the fight. That's really the only way I can explain it, because he never really woke up, but Wood didn't really do too much either. So I think Chairez could have won that fight, but again, maybe it was the cobwebs that he was shaking off from getting dropped like that. But, it is what it is. We move on to next week, and we move on to Moreno versus Erceg. Pretty good main event. I'm not a huge fan of flyweight main events, but I think this one will be kind of fun to break down. So without any further ado, let's jump into UFC Fight Night Mexico City. First fight up is going to be in the lightweight division. You got a battle between Austin Thud Hubbard taking on Markel Mederos. I actually really like this fight. I think that more than likely this fight does go to a decision. I think it's probably going to be a 15-minute kickboxing match. If anybody uses wrestling, I think Hubbard might shoot due to being uncomfortable on the feet with the feints, the footwork, the level changes, the stance changes of Mederos. And I honestly think this really comes down to Mederos being slicker on the feet. I think he throws better combinations. I think he finds better openings than a guy like Hubbard. And I don't think Hubbard's a bad fighter either. Hasn't had the most success in the UFC, but, he does throw some decent hooks. He can throw a level change or a feint level change, come up top with the hook. Decent 1-2, throws some decent kicks as well. I think this fight's going to play out close either way. If there is a finish in this fight, I think Mederos probably could catch Hubbard and knock him out. But I'm not going to bank on a finish against a guy who's never been knocked out, only been submitted. And I don't think Mederos is going to really look to engage in the grappling, whether he's on the top or if he gets taken down. I think he'd probably just try to work his way back up to the feet. And I think it's mainly a 15-minute kickboxing match. I like Mederos. I like his combinations. I like how loose and fluid he is on the feet, changing stances between orthodox and southpaw, throwing good 1-2s. We know he has knockout power because he knocked out his opponent on the Contender Series with that vicious knee, timed a knee right up the middle, dropped him and put him down. I could see a similar situation where he rocks Hubbard, jumps on him, and gets a TKO. You know, these guys who have never been finished, eventually, you know, the clock comes a ticking and eventually you do get put away. But I'm not going to bank on a finish against a guy who is as durable as Hubbard. But Hubbard gets hit so much, his defense isn't really there. I think Mederos is better defensively with his footwork, with his head movement, with the fact that he kind of turns his head away from shots as they're coming, rolling with the punches very well. And I think that's something that people don't really seem to analyze when they break down this fight. His fights is, you know, even when it looks like he's getting cracked, he's turning his head with the punches, kind of like a boxer would, and he's rolling with it, taking the power off of it. So sometimes it looks like he's getting cracked and he's just rolling with the punches. He's got good low kicks, you know, good little shake, switch stance, shake, inside and outside low kicks, good calf kicks, sets up everything with the jab. I think this is a Mederos spot, but I do think the fight plays out close to maybe where they give Austin Hubbard a greasy split decision. But I'm going to take Markel Mederos. Give me Markel Mederos 29-28 unanimous decision. But I could see it being a split and maybe Hubbard will squeak it out. But I think Mederos is too clean to lose to a guy like Hubbard. So 29-28 unanimous decision from Markel Mederos here. All right, next fight up is in the featherweight division. We got a battle between Jamal Pretty Boy Emmers taking on Gabriel the Fly Miranda. I'm going to be honest. I think the odds are off in this fight. I think it's a lot closer than what the odds are telling you. And I will say, I think if this fight stays on the feet, Jamal Emmers does probably knock out Gabriel Miranda. He's got a good 1-2, a solid jab. He's got a lot of power in his shots. But the decision-making of Jamal Emmers is where I kind of tend to fall off the rails in terms of picking him as a winner. I don't think this guy makes the best decisions inside the cage. And I think decision-making is something we talk about a lot on this podcast. And there were some bad decisions last week. Leon Edwards shooting a takedown against a guy who was dominating him in the grappling. Jordan Vucenic shooting a takedown in the second round when in the first round he kind of got dominated on the ground. Those are some bad decisions. And I think if anybody in this fight is going to make bad decisions, it's Jamal Emmers. And that's why I don't think he should be as big of a favorite as he is. He is going to win this fight if it stays on the feet. He is going to outbox Gabriel Miranda. He's going to throw that crisp jab, good 1-2s, probably follow up with some kicks. He has decent takedown defense. But I just see a scenario where Miranda, who knows what he's coming in there to do, is going to do it. I think he's going to find a way to work to the back of Jamal Emmers, whether it's Jamal stuffing a takedown but getting shucked to the side and then Miranda scoots out and takes his back, or, you know, Emmers jumping on Miranda when he hurts him on the ground and then Miranda sweeping and getting on top. Like there's a lot of scenarios here where I think Jamal Emmers is going to be winning until he's no longer winning. And I think Gabriel Miranda is going to take the back of Jamal Emmers, lock up a rear naked choke, and win by submission. I'm going to take the plus 280 underdog here in Gabriel Miranda. I think he's going to submit Jamal Emmers. Now, like I said, if it stays on the feet, I think Emmers outboxes him. He outstrikes him. But I don't think Miranda is an awful striker. You know, he can put combinations together. But again, this guy knows what he wants to do. And I'm sure Emmers is going to expect him to shoot some takedowns and stuff the takedowns and get back to the feet and start working, you know, kind of like a Hussein Askabov style of performance. And it would not shock me one bit if Emmers knocks him out, like I already said. But in this fight, I got to go Gabriel Miranda. I think he's going to find a way to get the fight where he wants it to be. And he's going to get a submission finish. So give me Gabriel Miranda to get a second round rear naked choke submission. I think it could be in the first round too. But I think he finds a way to take the back of Jamal Emmers, whether it's Emmers overcommitting on a punch and allowing Miranda to duck under, whether it's Emmers dropping Miranda and Miranda finding a way to scramble out and grab a submission. I think Miranda is going to take the back, lock in the rear naked choke, and get a second round submission finish. Give me Gabriel, the Fly Miranda, as the plus 280 underdog to get the win by a second round rear naked choke submission. I like him here. I think he's going to make the right decisions, come through some adversity, and choke his way to victory. All right, up next is a battle in the lightweight division. You have a fight between Garcia taking on Vince from Hell Pichel. This is another one where the odds really don't make sense to me. But in terms of a breakdown, I'll give you my quick thoughts on it. I think Garcia probably has the better, I would say better volume striking, but I still don't think Garcia is a great striker. He won against Clay Guida, beat him up, battered him up, and that was a good performance. But again, Guida's not the same fighter that he used to be. Then against Grant Dawson, he pretty much got taken down, controlled, beat up, and then stopped in the second round. But, Pichel doesn't have the wrestling accolades of a Grant Dawson. I think Garcia could take down Pichel. We've seen Pichel get taken down. We've seen him get held down before. But I just see Vince Pichel winning this fight. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going with another underdog. I think Pichel is going to find a way to make this fight dirty, make this fight nasty, and land some big shots on Garcia. And I think he's going to hurt him. I really do. I think Garcia is going to look good, but I think Garcia is going to slow down, and I think Pichel is going to have the better cardio in the second and third round. Maybe for the first round, he gets outstruck, gets taken down. I don't think Garcia is going to ground and pound TKO. I don't think Garcia is going to submit Pichel. And people are going to say, well, look at what he did. Look at his performance with Ismael Bonfim, etc., etc. I mean, Bonfim's not a bad fighter. I don't think he's the best, but I don't think that's a terrible performance for Pichel against Bonfim. That was a fight where I did fade Pichel. And in this fight, I just think Pichel is going to be the side I want to be on, whether it's a bet or a pick side. Garcia has a decent jab, a solid 1-2. He trains out of Valley Flow, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. He moves very well on his feet. Decent output. Probably going to have better output than Pichel, but I think Pichel is going to have the better cardio in the second and third round. I think if he could survive the first 6-7 minutes, I think Pichel is going to be the one pushing forward. I think Pichel is going to be the one putting combinations in the face of Garcia. I think Pichel is going to be the one making this nasty elbows and inside the clinch, knees to the body, uppercuts, dirty boxing, slow down Garcia, draw out those shots, stuff the takedowns, work their way back up to the feet. And I think Pichel is going to win the second and third round, and I think he's going to win a decision. I think he's going to make it dirty. I think he's going to make it nasty. I think Garcia is going to have his moments. I think Garcia might even cut open Pichel. Maybe he lands some big shots, hurts him. But I think Pichel comes back and starts to drain Garcia in the later portions of this fight. I think he has the better output in the second and third round. I think he wins the second and third round based on damage and based on the bigger moments. And I think he wins 29-28. Maybe a late finish. I could see a second or third round TKO for Vince Pichel, but I think he's going to make this fight hell for Garcia. Give me 29-28 unanimous decision for Vince from Hell Pichel over Garcia. I think he's the side here. I like this guy. He doesn't quit. He keeps pushing forward. And, he was getting beat up pretty bad by Bonfim, but I think Garcia would get beat up by Bonfim. So I don't take too much from that. I think this is a much more competitive fight, much more competitive than the odds would make you think. And I don't think there's any fight where Garcia should be a 4 or 5-1 favorite. It doesn't make sense. So give me Pichel, 29-28 unanimous decision. Well, we'll say split. Let's say split decision. 29-28 split decision for Vince from Hell Pichel. I think he makes it dirty, makes it nasty, grinds it out towards the late portions of the fight, and does enough to win the second and the third round. Vince from Hell Pichel, 29-28 split decision. All right, next fight up is in the women's strawweight division. You have a battle between Lupita Godinez taking on Julia Polastri. 13-4 for Polastri, 12-5 for Lupita Godinez. I'm going to be honest, again, I think this fight's going to be close. I think it's going to play out mainly a striking matchup. If anybody uses takedowns in grappling, I think it's Polastri. I think if anybody gets a submission, it's probably Polastri. And I think on the ground, Polastri probably wins the scrambles more than a girl like Lupita Godinez. I think Lupi could have beat Mackenzie Dern. I think Lupi Godinez could have beat Verna Jandriroba. But again, it's just bad decision making. She goes and gives up takedowns. She goes for submissions when she shouldn't and winds up on the bottom, winds up in a bad spot. And I think Polastri, she doesn't make the greatest decisions, but she did win that third round against Knudsen. I mean, she took her down. She got on top. She beat her up. She almost got a submission. And we know that this girl's going to push hard for 15 minutes. She got outstruck by Josephine Knudsen. I don't think she gets outstruck by Lupita Godinez. I think, if anything, Julia Polastri probably outstrikes Lupita Godinez. Now, it is in Mexico City. That plays a big factor, especially in the judges. They're probably going to side with Lupita Godinez in a close fight. But they don't always do it, so you still have to make your breakdown. I think the volume is on the side of Julia Polastri. I think she has better boxing. I think the boxing might be close in terms of technical proficiency, but I think Polastri has more output and a little bit better in the shot selection. I think she's more active than a girl like Lupita Godinez. Lupita Godinez is hard to hit. She keeps a guard very high. She moves her head very well. Reminds me a lot of how Alexa Grasso moves around. And I mean, they do train together at Team Lobo alongside Diego Lopez. So I think this fight's going to be close. I think Godinez is going to land some good shots. Godinez might have the better kicks, but I think Polastri is going to have higher volume. I think Polastri is going to land more shots. I think Polastri does better work inside the clinch because I would expect this fight to be pushed up against the cage in the over-unders or the double-unders or, the tie clinch at least a few times. And I think inside the clinch is where Polastri probably does her best work, making this fight dirty, uppercuts from the inside, elbows over the top, knees to the body, working down to the, throwing decent leg kicks. I think Godinez has great boxing as well, but I feel like Julia Polastri is a little bit better on the technical side. And I like the decisions that Polastri makes inside the cage. She knew that she was losing the Knudsen fight, and although she did lose, she did what she had to do to make it, a close fight and come out to try to win in the third round, almost getting a submission, getting the takedowns, outworking her. I think she would out-scramble Lupita Godinez. I think she probably ends up on the top at least a few times, maybe once or twice in this fight. I think she does better work in the clinch. I think she pushes a higher pace. I think the fight's going to be close because, like I said, I think Godinez is a good boxer. She uses a good jab, good check hook. She throws that straight right down the middle. Decent kicks of her own. She moves around well, has good defense. I think the fight plays out close, but I think the fighter who does more damage and the fighter who's more busy and the fighter who does more in terms of the judge's eyes is going to be the underdog in Julia Polastri. So give me Julia Polastri to get the job done here. 29-28. Unanimous. No, you know what? Since it's in Mexico City, 29-28 split decision for Julia Polastri. I think she has decent boxing, decent defense, solid straight technical punches, really good work in the clinch. I think she's busier, and I think she does more damage over 15 minutes. Give me Julia Polastri, 29-28 split decision over Lupita Godinez. All right, next fight up is in the featherweight division. You have a battle between Christian C-Rod Rodriguez taking on Melquiazel Costa. Great fight. Really solid fight. We took C-Rod as the plus 200 underdog against Austin Bashi. He did his thing. He looked great. Pretty much dominated the fight. Melquiazel Costa, we faded him against Andre Fili, but we did say that the only way he was going to win was by submission. Fili shot a takedown, got submitted almost immediately, and that was the end of that. With this fight, again, at elevation, Mexico City, I would say Melquiazel Costa probably more accustomed to the elevation. I do think that it is going to have cardio effects on both guys, and I'm pretty sure the last time we saw C-Rod get submitted by Julian Erosa, I'm pretty sure that fight was also at elevation. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can correct me in the comment section of this video. But I think that fight was also at elevation and C-Rod got a little tired. I think he's going to be more accustomed to the elevation this time. I think he's going to be better off this time when he goes to compete. And I think he's going to be the fighter in this fight who pushes the higher pace. I could easily see Melquiazel Costa finishing this fight by submission. I could even see C-Rod getting Costa tired, beating him up a little bit on the feet, and then getting him to the ground and getting a submission in his own right. I do not think this fight goes the distance. It's always a little bit tricky because featherweights tend to go the distance. Christian Rodriguez doesn't really finish fights. Melquiazel Costa does finish fights. He's gotten TKOs, got submissions. He's also been finished himself. I think the elevation in this fight is going to lead this fight to not go the distance, and somebody's going to get finished. I'm going to say that Rodriguez survives a hectic first round, puts a pace on Melquiazel Costa, starts picking his shots, landing the jab, throwing the 1-2, ripping good shots to the body. I think he starts landing some elbows inside the clinch. I think he defends the submission, wins the scrambles. And I'm going to say Christian Rodriguez ends up getting a... is it going to be a submission or a ground and pound finish? I'm going to say C-Rod wants to make a statement, and I think Rodriguez ends up submitting Melk Costa later on in the fight. Give me Christian C-Rod Rodriguez to win via a late second round rear naked choke submission. I could see a ground and pound finish, though. That would not surprise me. But I think Christian Rodriguez fights at a better pace than Costa. I think he can keep a higher pace over 15 minutes, even at elevation. I think he's got very good jiu-jitsu defense, but he did also get caught in a guillotine in the first round against Julian Juicy J. Arosa. And this is another scenario where, kind of like the Andre Fili fight, Rodriguez could be winning, shoot a takedown, and get his neck caught and get submitted. So this is kind of a tough fight, because I think if you're on the side of Melk Costa, you want to take Costa by sub. Probably Melk Costa by guillotine. I think that is more than live here. I think he can definitely get it. But I think Rodriguez is tough. He's durable. He's seen a lot. He's been in there with the best of the best. He's got the better striking. He's got very good jiu-jitsu defense, very good wrestling defense, and very good scrambles. I mean, just look at the fight against Austin Bashi. And yeah, I'm going to say Rodriguez weathers an early storm, gets caught in some submissions, but finds his way out of it. Starts landing good shots, lands the jab, lands the 1-2, throws good knees and elbows inside the clinch. I think he hurts hurts Costa, and then I think he gets a submission in the late portion of the second round. So give me Christian C-Rod Rodriguez to continue his winning streak and get the job done via second round rear naked choke submission. But I could easily see this being a TKO. All right, next fight up is in the middleweight division. You got a battle between Jose Daniel Medina, coming in 11-4, taking on a fighter off the Contender Series in Atiba Gautier, who is, it says 1-0. I don't know the record off the top of my head. But on the Contender Series, Gautier got taken down, got controlled in the first round, but he hurt his opponent. I forgot his opponent's name, but really solid grappler and looking for submissions was his opponent. He hurt him in the first round, but then the wrestling, the takedowns, the forward pressure, and ended up winning that first round. They come out in round 2, and Gautier drops him with a big left hook. I believe he dropped him again. He followed him to the ground in his guard, allowed him to recover for a little bit, but then landed vicious ground and pound. Vicious hammer fists, vicious elbows, blew up his opponent's eye, and really poured it on towards the end of that second round and ended up getting a ground and pound finish. Jose Medina went the distance with Zachary Reese, but pretty much was a standing punching bag. And then on the Contender Series, he goes the distance with Magomed Gaziasolov and ends up losing the fight, but getting a contract because of how tough he is. In this fight, I think this is where we see Medina finally get his UFC win. I'm going to be honest. And knowing that the fights are at elevation, it makes me that much more confident in it. Could Gautier knock him out in the first round? Yeah, I think he could. I think 90% of the time, Gautier is going to win the first round against Jose Medina. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I think he wins the first round. But I think Medina survives. I think Medina works his way up. I think Medina gets Gautier tired, starts popping the jab, starts throwing 1-2s. I think he gets a takedown of his own. I think he gets on top of Gautier, and I think he ground and pound finishes him in the second round. I think the toughness of Jose Medina, paired with the elevation of a big, huge, strong, tough guy with knockout power, is going to play right into the hands of Jose Medina to get his first UFC win. I think he's going to get battered, get beat, get wrecked in the first round, survive, not give up, push a pace, continue to come forward. In round 2, I think Gautier is going to be exhausted. I think Medina's going to push forward, land some punches, 1-2 down the middle, get a takedown, get on top of him, and ground and pound him or submit him. I'm going to go with a second round ground and pound TKO for Jose Medina here, though. I think he's going to weather that early storm. And I think with the fight being at elevation, it's going to play into the hands of Jose Medina. 100% that the cardio, the forward pace, the heart, the determination, the desire, I think it's all going to come through for the plus 400 underdog in Jose Daniel Medina. I think he's going to weather that early storm, get beat up, maybe get dropped, come back, push forward, and he's going to break Atiba Gautier. Second round ground and pound finish for Jose Daniel Medina as the plus 400 underdog. Take it to the bank. We're cashing that ticket, baby. All right, next fight up is in the flyweight division. You got a battle between Edgar Chairez taking on CJ Vergara. This is one where I just have to go with the favorite in Chairez. I like what I've seen from him so far. Even in the Joshua Van fight where he was getting pieced up, he started landing good shots of his own, landed a big spinning back fist. He can throw flying knees, good uppercuts, really solid dirty boxing inside the clinch. And Vergara pretty much has to win on point fighting and getting the opponent tired and winning a decision. I think that could play a factor here because of the elevation. But I think Chairez is going to be ready for it. I think Chairez is just too mean for a guy like Vergara. I think he's too crisp on the feet for a guy like Vergara. I think he's going to pop that jab, throw the 1-2. I think he's going to chop him with leg kicks. I think he's going to beat him up to the body. I could see a submission or a TKO for Edgar Chairez here. And I think the only win equity for Vergara is to just survive getting beat on and then come back, kind of like what I think Medina's going to do. But I don't think Vergara has that, I guess you could say, fight-ending power or submission game to find a finish against a guy like Edgar Chairez. So I think the real only way he would win is a third-round finish if he just completely death gasses Chairez, or he wins a decision, winning 2 rounds out of the 3. But I think Chairez pushes forward. He has solid striking, good knees, good front kicks to the body, really solid boxing, mixes up his shots between knees, punches, kicks, and elbows, and a very solid jiu-jitsu game as well. Always hunts for that front choke, can be a ninja choke, can be a guillotine. And I think Chairez could catch Vergara shooting in and wrap up his neck and choke him out. We've seen Vergara get submitted before. I'm going to go with a second round guillotine choke submission for Edgar Chairez. I think he's going to beat up Vergara, hurt him. Vergara's not going to want to be in there. He's going to panic shoot, get caught in a guillotine, and get submitted. Give me Edgar Chairez, second round guillotine choke submission here over CJ Vergara. I think he gets the job done here, and I think he looks very good in doing it. So give me Edgar Chairez, second round guillotine choke submission here. Just do not have faith in Vergara as a fighter at the UFC level anymore. I'm being 100% honest with you. All right, up next, you got a battle in the flyweight division between Ronaldo Rodriguez and Kevin Borjas. Lazy Boy Rodriguez versus Borjas. This is a good fight. I think we know that the better striker is Borjas. He has a good jab, a very solid 1-2. Much better boxing and much cleaner on the feet than Rodriguez. If the fight primarily stays a kickboxing matchup, I'm going to be honest, I think Borjas probably knocks him out more times than not. Very good, Peruvian-style boxing jab, 1-2, good left hook, a good counter left hook as well. But he has been rocked. He is susceptible to low kicks, and I think the grappling of Ronaldo Rodriguez is really what's going to make the biggest difference in this fight. People are going to come into this fight and pick Borjas as the underdog mainly because we saw Rodriguez at least get dropped badly by Ode Osborne and then almost get submitted. I think if Borjas drops Rodriguez, he's probably going to let him back up to the feet, which would be the smart thing, but that's also going to allow for Rodriguez to get more time to recover. I think that this fight is closer than people are expecting. I think this fight is going to be closer one way or another. I don't think it's a shutout for either guy. I think if there's a finish by submission, it more than likely would come from the side of Rodriguez, probably weathering an early storm, finding a way to shoot a takedown or shoot a shot and then shuck the opponent by, take Borjas' back and look for a sub. I think more than likely, the grappling of Rodriguez is just going to be too much for Borjas. I'm a Borjas fan. I bet him by knockout against Joshua Van. I bet him against Alessandro Costa as well, and the leg kicks just tore him up. He landed some good shots on the feet, but he wasn't really able to put anything together. Looked decent on the Contender Series, but hasn't had that, standout performance inside the UFC. It could come here because I think the defense of Rodriguez on the feet isn't really there. And like I said, I think the better striker is Kevin Borjas. If this fight stays a kickboxing fight, I think Borjas wins and Borjas probably gets a knockout. But I think the forward pressure, the grappling, the wrestling, the submissions, I think that's all going to play into Lazy Boy Rodriguez. And I think he is going to start to get those takedowns. He is going to continue to push forward. He is going to be able to win scrambles. And eventually he is going to get Borjas on the ground. I think he's going to beat him up with some ground and pound. I think he's going to control him in positions after he gets rocked, after he gets hurt. And I think eventually he's going to take the back. And I think he will submit Kevin Borjas with a rear naked choke. Now, it could be a scenario where he wins by decision. I would not be surprised if Rodriguez, just wins on control time, tires out Borjas but can't finish him, and wins a decision. But I think he's going to get a late finish, probably a submission. Give me Ronaldo, Lazy Boy Rodriguez. Give me him to win via a third round rear naked choke. I think he's going to survive a first round, probably get rocked, find a way to come back into the fight, start to tire out Borjas. The takedowns become easier and easier. Cage pushing takedowns, top control, land elbows, land hammer fists, look for arm triangle choke submission, and then eventually take the back and get a rear naked choke. So give me Ronaldo, Lazy Boy Rodriguez, third round rear naked choke submission over Kevin Borjas here. All right, next fight up is in the bantamweight division. You have a battle between David Martinez coming in for his UFC debut against the returning Simon Oliveira. Listen, aside from a guillotine choke, aside from Martinez getting tired and getting submitted, I think Martinez is going to get a knockout here. I think he's much better on the feet than Simon Oliveira. I think he's much better with his footwork, much better with his movement. Very solid kicking game, and I think he's just going to beat up Simon Oliveira. I'm not going to sit here and take a bunch of your time away for this breakdown and prediction. I think Oliveira can win based on the Martinez getting tired and shooting a takedown and getting submitted. I think he can win based off of winning a scramble and finding a way to the back and getting a sub. But on the feet, I think Martinez is too fast, too crisp, too explosive. And I think he is going to piece up Simon Oliveira, his legs, his body, his head. And I think he's going to get a second round TKO. I think he's going to head kick him, drop him, jump on him, and finish him. Give me David Martinez, second round knockout here. There's not too much to break down here. I think this is going to be a standout performance for the Contender Series debut, or the Contender Series UFC debuting fighter. It doesn't always work out. I think this is a case where it does work out, and he just beats him up on the feet and avoids the submission and gets a TKO. So give me David Martinez, second round TKO over Simon Oliveira. Like I said, doesn't have to be a long breakdown. Basically said what it is, and Oliveira is submission or bust. All right, next fight up is in the bantamweight division. You have a battle between Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Vince Vendetta Morales, who just came off of that decision loss to Elijah Smith. I'm going to tell you this exactly like it is. I see a lot of people are probably going to be on the side of Vince Morales. Raul Rosas Jr. doesn't have the UFC experience. Vince Morales fought more fighters, fought more fights in his pro MMA career, more UFC experience, very good jiu-jitsu, solid power on the feet. But I'm going to be honest, I think the grappling and jiu-jitsu of Raul Rosas Jr. is just going to be too much for Vince Morales. Now, if you want to play on the side of the devil's advocate and you want to take a shot on the underdog in Vince Morales, here's the deal. You probably want to take him to win in round 3. I think if he could survive the first 2 rounds, win some scrambles against Rosas Jr., land some strikes on the feet, wouldn't be surprised if he tired him out and won in that 3rd round. I think that is the highest winning equity for Vince Morales, is to win in round 3 by surviving the first 2 rounds. Probably loses both of those rounds, probably gets out grappled, gets taken down, gets controlled, maybe gets out struck on the feet a little bit, then comes back, lands some good boxing, good inside clinch boxing, dirty boxing of his own, and starts to piece up Rosas. The takedowns become easier to defend, and he probably grabs his neck in the 3rd round. So if you want to play 3rd round for Morales, I think it's worth a shot. If you want to play Morales inside the distance, I think it's worth a shot if you want to take a stab on the underdog. I think if he wins, now 100% of the time it's going to be inside the distance because they're not going to give him a decision in Mexico City against Raul Rosas Jr., even if it's a close fight. I'm going Raul Rosas Jr. to just be too much with his wrestling. I think the wrestling and the top control, the ability to hunt for the back, the submissions, I think he's just going to be too much for Vince Morales. I think this kid is legit. I don't think he's going to be a champion, but I think he is legit, and I think he's going to use his wrestling, use that chain wrestling, find a way to take the back of Vince Morales and get a first-round rear naked choke submission. I think it could come in the second round as well, but I do see the wrestling and jiu-jitsu of Raul Rosas Jr. being way too much for Vince Morales to the point where he's not going to be able to survive long enough to win that fight in the third round. Always live for a sub. You know, he almost caught Elijah Smith in that Darce choke. It looked very, very close. Locked it up about 2 times, but wasn't able to get it. And in this fight, I think the wrestling and jiu-jitsu of Rosas Jr. is way better than the wrestling, both offensively and defensively, of a guy like Elijah Smith. So I think he's going to take him down. He's going to get to those positions he needs to be at. He's going to win those scrambles. He's going to take the back of Vince Morales, and he's going to win. Give me Raul Rosas Jr. to win. First round rear naked choke submission. Potentially could be a second round, but when we get past the midpoint of the second round to about 1.5 minutes left, that's where the tides could start to turn on the side of the heavy underdog in Morales. And like I said, if you're on the side of Vince Morales, you want to take Vince Morales wins in round 3, Vince Morales submission round 3, or Vince Morales just inside the distance, because they are not going to give him the decision even if it's a close fight. So give me Raul Rosas Jr., first round rear naked choke submission. I think he gets it done quick and gets a big win in Mexico City. All right, up next we have a battle in the middleweight division in a banger of a fight between the former title challenger and Kelvin Gastelum, taking on the one-punch knockout artist in Joe Bodybags Pyfer. Pyfer versus Gastelum. I mean, honestly, I think this is a Pyfer win 85% of the time. I don't think Gastelum is really committed to the game at this point. I think that he's only moving up to 185 so that he doesn't have to cut the weight down to 170 anymore. He had issues making weight in his last fight, and I feel like he just doesn't want to have the discipline of cutting the weight. Gastelum has always been a powerful puncher, moves well, decent takedowns, mainly takedown defense, though. He doesn't really shoot takedowns. I'm going to be honest, I thought he lost that fight to Daniel Rodriguez. I thought the judges should have given that fight to D-Rod, and they didn't. You know, decent performance from Kelvin. He got the job done. In this fight, I don't think he's going to have that luxury, because I think on the feet, if there's one man who can knock out Kelvin Gastelum, it's a guy like Joe Pyfer. People are saying Gastelum's never been KO'd. He's very durable. He's got a chin. He does have a chin, but we've seen him get dropped. I mean, he got dropped 2 or 3 times by Adesanya, and, you know, he did hurt Adesanya as well. That's one of the best performances of Gastelum's career, even though he came out in a loss. Did have that knockout victory over Michael Bisping after Bisping lost the title to GSP. But again, that was Bisping taking the fight on such short notice after getting basically knocked out and then choked unconscious. I mean, he shouldn't have taken that fight to begin with, but it was still a big win for Gastelum with an asterisk next to it. Pyfer's teammate in Sean Brady, coming off that 4th round sub like we talked about, he also submitted Kelvin Gastelum with an arm triangle choke. A Kimura, not an arm triangle choke. He submitted him with a Kimura. Chris Weidman also got dropped by Gastelum, came back and submitted Gastelum with a arm triangle choke. I think this is going to be very similar, hear me out, to the Abdul Razak El Hassan fight with Joe Pyfer. Now, in that fight, we called Joe Pyfer by submission. I believe we called an arm triangle choke. And I think we said second round. In this fight, I think Pyfer could knock out Gastelum on the feet, but I'm not going to bank on the fact of him getting a KO against a guy who is notoriously difficult to knock out, and also, you know, moving up a weight class, which is probably going to help his durability, even though it won't help his output. I think Gastelum could crack Pyfer on the chin. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Pyfer's going to beat him up on the feet. I think Pyfer's going to get a takedown or wind up in the top position one way or another, and I think Joe Pyfer wins this fight by submission. I think he's going to get an arm triangle choke finish, just like he did against Abdul Razak El Hassan. I think he is going to submit Kelvin Gastelum with an arm triangle choke, and people are going to be shocked because a lot of people are going to be expecting a knockout here from Pyfer. Do I think Pyfer could knock out Gastelum? Yes, I do, but I think he's going to take the path of least resistance and try to eliminate the win conditions for Gastelum. I mean, Pyfer's a very smart fighter. Even though he lost to Jack Hermanson in that fight. I think that was kind of like a white horse style of performance, or like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like, we're not going to see that very often from Joe Pyfer, and I think Pyfer's going to make a statement here, but I don't think it's on the feet. I think he's going to take down Gastelum. I think he will hurt him on the feet, but eventually he will take him down. I think he's going to wind up in the top position, and I think he's going to get an arm triangle choke submission and finish off Kelvin Gastelum in the second round. Give me Joe Pyfer, Body Bags Pyfer, Joe Body Bags Pyfer, since I can't talk, via a second round arm triangle choke submission. I think he's going to take down Gastelum and submit him in a way that we've seen him submitted before. Gastelum also very good from the top position, not good off of his back. I think Pyfer will exploit that, and Gastelum's not going to want to explode too much on the feet because of how powerful Pyfer is with his striking. That's going to open up the takedown. Pyfer's going to get him to the mat, get on top, get an arm triangle, and submit him in round 2. Give me Joe Pyfer, second round arm triangle choke submission over Kelvin Gastelum to get the biggest win of his career and vault himself into contention in the 185-pound division. Now we move to the co-main event of the evening in the lightweight division. You have a battle between Manuel El Loco Torres taking on Drew Dober. Phenomenal matchup. Probably one of my favorite fights on the card aside from Gastelum and Pyfer. This is a great fight, and somebody is getting finished. This fight is not making it the distance. I could understand why a lot of people would sour on Manuel Torres coming off that knockout loss to Ignacio Bahamondes. He just rushed in, got countered, got clipped, and Drew Dober is the type of guy where he can slip and counter just like Ignacio Bahamondes. He slipped to the outside of his shot, came back with the rear hand pull counter, little slip counter, pull counter, bang, caught him with the same shot twice. That was a really, not the greatest performance from Torres. Even though Torres did hurt Ignacio early, cracked him with some shots, he was basically just lunging in with his chin in the air. And, that's what Torres is. He's a killer-be-killed fighter. But I will say, I think he's more well-rounded than Drew Dober. I think he's got submissions, he's got grappling, he's got takedowns, he's got the ability to grab your neck if you get rocked and shoot a bad takedown. And I think Manuel Torres by submission here is something that could definitely happen. Drew Dober, not the best performances in recent memory. Biggest win recently was a knockout win over Ricky Glenn, and then that knockout victory over Bobby Green, where he was getting pieced up, he was getting dominated, and he just caught him up against the cage, hit him with that shot, dropped him, and knocked him out. After that, though, Bobby Green has been knocked out a bunch of times, and he's one of the chinniest fighters in the UFC. So even though he won that fight, which is a good win, at the time it was a great win. Looking back on it now, not the best win for Dober. Ricky Glenn was pretty much a give-me fight for Dober. No striking, all wrestling, beat him up on the feet, knock him out. I mean, it is what it is. I think Torres is a dangerous opponent. I think Drew Dober is also dangerous. He is the cleaner striker. He's got the cleaner kickboxing, and he could catch Manuel Torres coming in and knock him out. 100% Dober could land a cleaner counter. He is the cleaner fighter. Better counters, better slip counters, crisper boxing. But I think Torres in Mexico is going to come in here and he's going to make a statement. Again, you have to think about where we are in terms of the hometown advantage. And I think Manuel Torres is going to come out here and put on an amazing performance. We have seen Dober get submitted before. I would not be surprised if Torres rocked Dober and then grabbed his neck and choked him, kind of like Chris Duncan. And the win over Chris Duncan looks even better considering he just choked out Jordan Vucenic, who you guys know I am very high on. So in this fight, I'm going to take the favorite in Manuel Torres. I think he's going to win. I think he's going to finish Drew Dober. But I do worry if we get out of that first round that Torres is going to be a punching bag and he might just get finished by Dober. I don't think this fight goes the distance. I think if there's a submission finish, it's on the side of Manuel Torres. If it's a knockout, it could be on either side. But I could see Dober landing that left-hand counter. But that's another thing. Dober is pretty much just a jab and a left straight. He doesn't throw a ton of combinations. He doesn't throw a ton of variety. And I think that's the difference here. I think Torres has more variety. He has step-in elbows, elbows and knees in the clinch. He has takedowns. He can go for submissions. Even if they don't look the best technically, he'll find a way to just grab you and choke the life out of you. I think Manuel Torres is going to rock Drew Dober in the first round, and then I think he's going to put him away. Give me Manuel Torres first round knockout over Drew Dober. It's a risky pick because I think Dober could be right there to land that straight left on Torres and knock him out. I don't think Manuel Torres is that durable. I think Drew Dober is durable, but I think his durability is declining. And I think this is the perfect time for Torres to get a guy like Drew Dober and find a way to win. This is also a very winnable fight for Dober. Like I already said, Torres is there to be hit. He's there to be hit with that straight left hand as he steps in, opposite stance. And I think it could happen. Torres will switch stances between orthodox and southpaw as well before he throws his combinations. I wouldn't be surprised if that straight left hand cracked the chin of Manuel Torres and knocked him out. But I'm not going to go with it. I'm going to go with the fact that Torres comes in here in Mexico City and gets a big win, the biggest win of his career, and finishes Drew Dober in round 1. Give me Manuel El Loco Torres to get the job done here. First round knockout. Could be a submission, though, over Drew Dober. I'm going El Loco in this spot. All right, now we go to the main event of the evening in the flyweight division between the former flyweight champion and Brandon Moreno taking on Steve Astro Boy Erceg. This one, I don't really want to break down, guys. I'm excited to watch the fight, but I think this fight plays out close either way you look at it. And based on the fact that we're in Mexico City, I'm going to take Brandon Moreno by split decision. I think that Erceg is probably the sharper striker on the feet. I think that he moves around well. He switches stances. Really solid lead hand. One cross to the body, hook up top like he landed on Matt Schnell, but Schnell also a really chinny fighter. He looked very good against Alexandre Pantoja. Arguably could have won that fight, but gave up the takedown and the control in the 5th round and then ended up losing on the scorecards, but had a good performance. Moreno, again, this is in Mexico City, so if it's a close fight, I would venture to say they're probably going to give it to Brandon Moreno. If I'm looking at a money line perspective on this fight in terms of betting, I honestly would put a little bit on Steve Erceg. I think he is a very well-rounded guy. He got caught and knocked out by Kai Kara-France, but anybody who gets caught with those shots by Kai Kara-France could get knocked out. So I don't really hold that against him. But he did also get rocked and almost knocked out by Alessandro Costa as well. I think that Steve Erceg has very solid jiu-jitsu, and he will be able to, compete in the grappling against Moreno. I think Moreno probably wins more scrambles than he loses, but he could put himself in a bad spot and potentially get submitted. A lot of people are going to say Moreno isn't really, he's not really in the game. He's not in the fight game 100% anymore, but he comes in and he dominates Amir Albazi, wins every single round, and looks very good doing it. That was a fight where I faded Moreno, and I've never been the best at picking flyweight fights. I'm going to tell you guys right now, if there's one weight class that is my kryptonite in the UFC, it's the flyweight division. I've never been the best. It's probably my worst prediction rate per weight class would have to be the flyweight division. I'm going to be honest. When I say fights are going to finish, they go the distance. When I pick one guy to win, they get knocked out. I don't know. So I would definitely not, don't go with me on this pick. But I'm going to pick Brandon Moreno by decision. I think he wins 3 out of the 5 rounds. I think Erceg does do some good work in the striking. He's long and rangy, good boxing, good long 1-2s, solid elbows in the clinch, good knees, and very solid jiu-jitsu as well. Like I said, he could put Moreno in some positions where he could potentially lock up a submission, but I don't see Moreno getting submitted. I think if anybody gets submitted, it's probably Moreno finding a way to take the back of Steve Erceg and lock up a rear naked choke. We saw him do that to Davison Figueiredo. And Figueiredo, look at what he's doing at 135 pounds. Yeah, he lost to Piotr Jan, but you guys know how I feel about Piotr Jan. I think he is the best 135er, or one of the best 135ers in the world, alongside the champion in Merab Dvalishvili, who just seems to not be able to be stopped at this point. In this one, though, yeah, like I said, it's in Mexico City. I'm not going to put too much thought into it. Even if it's a close fight where I think Erceg does more damage, I think Erceg has the bigger moments, I think Erceg wins 3 rounds, I still think the judges are going to give it to Moreno. So the pick is going to be Brandon, the Assassin Baby Moreno, to get the job done here. I'm going to say Moreno wins 48-47 split decision. I think it goes to the scorecards. I think the fight is close. I think at least one judge does score it for Erceg because he will be able to compete on the feet against Brandon Moreno. Like I said, long, crispy strikes, decent power as well. I feel like he has more power in his strikes than Moreno, but Moreno, I feel like, can mix it up well and probably win some scrambles on the ground. So Give me Brandon Moreno to win 48-47, split decision, winning 3 out of the 5 rounds. Even if it's a fight that, like I said, you think Erceg did enough to win, you can't cry robbery. We're in Mexico City. If the fight's close, usually they're going to side with their guy in the hometown advantage. So give me Brandon Moreno. I know he lost to Royval in Mexico City. I think this is a different case than Brandon Royval. I mean, look at what Royval did to Tatsuro Taira as well. So give me Brandon Moreno to win 48-47 split decision. And yeah, those are my picks for UFC Fight Night Mexico City. Let me know what your favorite picks are in the comment section below. Give me your favorite underdogs, your favorite favorites, your favorite parlays, your favorite plays. And let me know what you thought about last week's card and Sean Brady's submission over Leon Edwards. I'm your host, Double M. This has been UFC Mexico City, Moreno versus Erceg. Preview, predictions, and breakdown. Let's make some money this weekend. And I'm out, guys. Have a good night, everybody.